The most important meal of the day, second breakfast.
Hi, everybody. Welcome back to another Second Breakfast podcast. I'm Andy Roth alongside Phil Duvall. Say hi, Phil.
Hello, everybody.
And today we're going to talk about fair to call it a cornerstone movie, a seminal movie.
I think it's fair to call it, I would go ahead and call it a classic. I would
concur.
go ahead and call it a masterpiece.
As would I.
This is a movie that came out in 1999, and if you say you saw it in the theaters, you are a liar. Nobody saw it, and then about a year or two later, it just started to become a big deal on DVD. And it's like, did you know that 250,000 people were at Woodstock, and about 4 million people claim to have been at Woodstock?
Oh, totally.
Totally. Which, first of all, I just don't understand that. I don't understand why you would claim. There's nothing like. Why I don't get it.
All I can tell you is this. The Houston area has about 3.5 million people in it. All right. In 1986, the Astros became the only team in Major League Baseball history to clinch their division on a no-hitter. Mike Scott beat the Giants. He no-hit the Giants, and that was our division-clinching win.
Wow.
The Astrodome seats, 50, 60,000 people? I'm not actually sure. Well, none now because it's a decrepit old building. But basically, at this point, 3.5 million people were at that game.
Yeah.
I mean, functionally, literally
I remember that day.
Exactly.
I remember when Mike Scott threw that no-hitter. No, you don't.
So what I will say is this to what you have just posited. I think I remember seeing Office Space in the theater. I may be wrong, A.
Yes, you are.
And B, I'm doing 1 and 2, but so 1, I may be wrong. 2,
A and B.
And also D. Secondly, even if I'm right, I will be honest with you and with Second Breakfast Nation and say I did not want to go see it. I was like, this looks stupid.
Then here's why I don't think so. First of all, the movie's called Office Space. The movie we're talking about is called Office Space. We haven't even said that yet.
That's right.
If you are shocked to hear that this movie was not a big hit, and if you are beside yourself with rage that I would suggest that you didn't see it in the theater, deal with it, because you didn't. And Andy, God bless you. There's no way you saw it in the theater, but I love the fact that you thought you might have. only because nobody did, and you weren't like Mr. Moviegoer at that point in your life.
No, but we did. But here's what I mean by that. I think a friend might have suggested it.
Okay.
And we went over spring break or something because it came out in February.
The only reason I will suggest that's a possibility for you at all,
please,
is that you are from Texas, which is the home state of Mike Judge, who wrote and directed Office Space.
That was absolutely part of it. Guys, if you're out there and I saw Office Space in the theater with you, please email in secondbreakfastpodcast@gmail.com. I don't care if I saw it in the theater. I don't care if I'm right or not. I just want to know whether or not I'm crazy.
I don't want to know. I just want to know.
Yeah,
I understand that completely. Listen, there's a great moment in the documentary about Bob Dylan's English 1965 tour of England called "Don't Look Back," where there's his entourage is partying, and he comes in yelling at them, and someone had thrown a glass out the window.
Okay.
And if you're the head of that entourage, who gets in trouble for the glass being thrown out the window, right?
Yeah.
So Dylan is decidedly very angry and also probably not totally sober. And he keeps saying, I don't care who threw it. I just want to know who threw it.
Nice.
Which, when you think about it, makes sense.
Yes.
But when you're hearing it, doesn't make sense at all.
Right.
I don't care who threw it. I just want to know who threw it. And you don't care if you saw Office Space. You just want to know if you saw Office Space.
That's right. It's like everything that Yogi Berra said. It's so crowded that no one goes there anymore. That makes total sense, and it makes zero sense at all.
Yes, at the exact same time.
Yes.
At the exact same time.
Yes.
This is how I don't pretend that I loved Big Lebowski when I first saw it, because I didn't.
Sure.
I did see it in the theater, but that's a whole other story, because I'm a Coen Brothers fanatic. But I told that story before. You can go look at, I don't remember which one it was, but we talked about that. And basically, I saw it with my father, who was not interested in that movie. And if you see a movie with someone who doesn't like something, bad news.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Office Space made $4 million in the movie theater.
Oh, Wikipedia has more than that.
Oh, 10 million. I'm sorry, 10 million. I apologize. Why did it say 4 were in the Wikipedia? I guess I read it wrong. $10 million in the movie theaters, which, if you know anything about movies, that is not a lot of movies. Now, on top of that, not a lot of money. On top of that, Mike Judge at this point was already famous for creating Beavis and Butthead, which, if you youngsters may not realize, was a huge hit.
Yes.
And there would be no South Park, and there would be no Family Guy, and there would be no many things if not for Beavis and Butthead. So Mike Judge made Beavis and Butthead, which was just a ginormous success. And then he made the movie Beavis and Butthead Do America, which made, well, I mean, it made $63 million on a $12 million budget, and it was number one in opening weekend, $20 million opening weekend for back in, whenever that came out, 95. That's not a bad deal at all. Or it came out in 96, and that's not a bad deal at all.
I think I'm really glad you said that, because while it's so true that like pretty much every cartoon can trace some of its lineage back to The Simpsons at this point, a lot of the, and it's not like Simpsons is wasn't an extremely intelligent show, but a lot of the sort of satirical, intelligent stuff that is on the air right now in cartoon form owes quite a lot to Beavis and Butthead.
Right, and the difference, and this is in no way a knocking on Simpsons.
Of course.
It's that the Simpsons made a point of making really smart, really witty, really carefully constructed comedy, and Mike Judge made, I will say this, and people might disagree, very smart comedy about very dumb people.
Yes.
So the comedy seems dumb, and I mean, a lot of times it's like someone, like, it's the stuff of like someone being like, you said tool.
Right.
Just stuff like that,
Yes.
like, we've got a job to do. You said job. It's like things like that, and then they're just laughing. But like, it's the portrayal of idiot teenagers so accurately and with no winking. Like, there's no one outside.
Right. That's
to be like, these guys are idiots, mugging at the camera going, can you believe this?
Yeah.
And the great thing about The Simpsons is whenever Homer's an idiot, you have Maggie or you have Lisa going, oh my.
You're an idiot.
Right.
Yes.
There's always a character who is like the moral compass. And Beavis and Butthead is a show with no compass in that sense. Except for the creator, we have to, and so the viewer has to be the compass, which is a very different thing. And so any sort of gross out humor and dumb humor, it owes a lot to Beavis and Butthead. So Mike Judge was a huge deal, and then he made this movie, which was live action, and no one knew him for being a live action guy.
Right.
He'd already created Beavis and Butthead. He had already created King of the Hill, which was a modest success going right after The Simpsons. So he had sort of made his mark as a cartoon guy, and then he made this movie, and And Jennifer Aniston was in it, but she wasn't like a movie star at this point. She was still just a friend's girl, and so there was no given that she was going to make a big deal. And the movie didn't. It just came and went.
Was this before or after King of the Hill came out? I don't remember when that started.
It was. Oh, you mean Office Space?
Yeah.
It was after when King of the Hill came out, because King of the Hill was because Office Space came out in '99, and King of the Hill was out around.
Oh, it must.
I'm gonna look it up. Oh, it started in '97.
Yeah, I was gonna say it must have been around when we started college.
Yeah.
So yeah, I wanna single in on or zero in on something you just said, and that is that there's no winking, and
yeah.
I mean, God, you watch enough pop culture these days, and it's like, oh, my kingdom for just an ounce of sincerity, and King of the Hill. I mean, these are buffoons. They're none of the, there's not an it's arguably a show without a single truly intelligent character. But it's not making fun of them. They are funny, but it's not. And I guess it's when it does make fun, it's making fun without looking down on them. And I think that is something that people think about Office Space as like this. Oh, it's such a sarcastic, like, oh, these bosses are so terrible, and
right.
It just hates them. And that's not actually what the movie does, and I think that's one of the reasons it's so great. Like, Lumbergh...
Well, it kind of hates on Lumbergh, but...
Yeah, but, like, it hates on Lumbergh, but at the same time, he's never presented as anything other than a cog in the machine.
That's fair. I mean, he has his own... He's a loser, too.
Exactly.
But I think it takes a little bit of joy in that.
That's true.
I think the most interesting characters in Office Space are the two guys, Bob and Bob, that are firing people.
Yes.
Because the main character, Ron Livingston's character, whose name is oh boy, what's his name? What's his character's name?
Ron Livingston?
No, but what's his name in the movie? Is it Mike?
Peter Gibbons.
Peter Gibbons.
Mm-hmm.
Peter doesn't hate them the way he hates Lumbergh. There's that great moment where he's like,
That's true.
"Good luck with your layoffs. I hope your firings go really well." and it's like that. It's a beautiful line. Like, it's one of the best lines in the movie. But part of the reason it's so good is he doesn't say it in a mean way.
Yes.
Like,
yes.
he's all like at all. Like, he's actually like, I'm making a ridiculous statement, but listen, I hope this goes really well for you. Like,
Yes.
It's your job, and that's what you do.
Yep.
Ron Livingston's performance in this movie is a virtuoso comic performance from a guy that, but before this point, maybe had only been known for being like the fourth guy in Swingers.
Yes. Yeah.
And then soon after this would be known for Band of Brothers.
Yes.
So I think Band of Brothers came out shortly thereafter, and if you think about him, like Band of Brothers and Office Space at the same time, but I mean, you're right. I mean, I think it doesn't. I mean, it makes it. You've got some real, for lack of a better term, D-bags in some of the as far as the a lot of the characters are concerned.
Yeah.
But I mean, this predates The Office, doesn't it? And it's got this feeling of just like, I don't know. I've never worked in an office. I worked in an office for 1 week. 1 week. And it was the most painful thing. I quit my job after 4 days, and I went to lunch the day that I quit. I went to lunch with the guy who was like the secretary there, and he goes, "You're leaving, huh?" And I was like, "Yeah." And he goes, "I knew you weren't gonna last." And I go, "Really? Why?" And he goes, "I just saw the look on your face when she told you had to clock in. I just knew you weren't gonna last."
I have only recently started working in an office as a lawyer.
Right.
But one thing that I think that this movie does really well, and I think it's in large part, although not completely, because of Jennifer Aniston's character. Like, you don't just see this one office. The point is not made, and this is also what I mean by saying like Lumbergh is just a cog in the machine. What's the company they work at? Initech.
Yeah.
Initech is not the only terrible place to work in this.
Sure,
movie.
it's every place. I mean, It's like working sucks.
Yes.
I think one of the things that's important to understand is that working is not cool. Like, it's not fun. I mean, I love my job, but if I didn't have to do it, I wouldn't. Like, right?
Sure.
Like you and I've joked about, like, if we were and I mean, I don't know. I would still do something priestly, I hope. I really love what I do.
Right.
But it would be funny if I was a squigillionaire, like the first time someone gave me any resistance and I was just like, well, peace out. Good luck finding someone else to run this ship. You know? Like, that would be my whole attitude. And it's like, which isn't probably healthy. I think, I mean, he ends up having to go back to work. But I mean, that's the funny thing about the movie is he doesn't not work forever.
Right.
So there's a subversive element to Office Space because it's not actually. It starts out with work sucks, but then there's this mentality of really what it's about is like, don't get trapped doing something you don't love.
Yeah.
I mean, that is actually the underlying message.
That's right.
Don't get trapped doing something you don't love. In the end, he's like working construction, and and there's something he loves about it, and it's simple.
Yes.
You know.
Yes,
and
I think he really, like, not to delve too deeply, although I think we can and one can. Peter Gibbons, like, as a character, what he's looking for is that simplicity. He doesn't we don't see him like necessarily talking ill about the actual meat of his job. what we see him hating are the TPS reports and all the
Well,
bureaucratic red tape that he has
he
to
hates.
do.
He doesn't hate working on a computer. He hates all the stuff that goes around working on a
Yes.
computer and the way
Yes.
people treat him.
Yes,
Right.
that's right.
And that it's like, you know, you could see how he would have gotten into this job in the first place.
Yes.
You know what I mean? But I think what this movie, I just had this sort of like moment, you know, like I realized like this movie is, it's fundamentally critiquing the whole idea of the rat race, and not that it exists. It's saying that it exists,
Right.
and it's saying like we allow ourselves to fall into these patterns, and we need to snap. And what's funny is when he gets hypnotized, that's when he actually starts acting like he's meant to be, which is interesting. When he's hypnotized is when he actually wakes up. And before he's hypnotized, his job is like a sense of hypnosis. And when he gets hypnotized, you start to look around and you realize how everyone else is sort of trapped. You
Right.
know?
That's
So
right.
there's the symbolism of the hypnosis is pretty fantastic.
Right. Like I mean, I don't necessarily think there's a lot of religious imagery in this movie, but the scales have fallen from his eyes. You know what I
Oh
mean?
yeah, no,
Like,
that's
it's
fantastic. That's
like,
fantastic.
you know.
And yeah, and it's that idea. I mean, it's the funny thing about the Christian language around baptism is that it's a death. It's a death that you die so that you can be
Sure.
reborn. And
Sure.
so it's that irony. It's a fundamental irony in Christian symbolism. And most the great Christian and Jewish symbolism is just full of irony. I mean, you read the story of Exodus, and it's like, who's the powerful one? It's the God of these tiny little slaves who are weak and you know, who's the powerless one? It's this great. So in Office Space, it's like, who's the one who's awake, right? The guy who's been hypnotized.
Right.
Right.
And to
but you know
take
what?
it further, just real quick, I'm sorry for interrupting.
No.
To take it further, the only one who's happy at the beginning of the movie is his like weird, to the outside world, deadbeat neighbor, right? Diedrich Bader, who works construction, but you know what? Every day he comes home happy.
You're right.
Every day he comes
That
home
whole anyone ever tell you got the case of the Mondays? No. No, man. And that whole his because what's beautiful about that reaction, which I can't repeat on our family podcast,
that's right,
is that it is pure, like, it's not just that doesn't happen to me, it's that I hadn't even thought about that. Like it's not just I would never work at a place where they would do that, it's I didn't even people would say that to you. Like it's that sort of beautiful that beautiful like innocence. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Yeah, and so it's a matter of recapturing that. Well, listen, and part of the thing is we've talked to a degree, we've talked pretty fancy-pantsy about what is essentially just a funny movie. And I think one thing that like so this movie came out, and what ended up happening was they showed it on Comedy Central over and over again, and it became a big hit on Comedy Central. And the movie ended up becoming one of the biggest DVD sales of all time. I mean, it is one of the highest grossing DVD. Like everybody owns this movie. I have owned it at some point. I don't own it anymore. Someone borrowed it from me, and I'll have to get it back someday or basically re-buy it. But it's one of those movies. It's a cable mainstay. It's a movie that if it's on, you're gonna watch it.
Yeah.
And I mean, that's how I found out about it. That and another one that came out that same year that was like that was Galaxy Quest.
Agreed. That one I absolutely saw in the theaters.
But Office Space, our friend Chris Ferraro was like, "Have you seen this?" And I was like, "No."
That's right.
And he's like, "Oh, you need to get your life together." And I did.
Here you go. Here's something interesting. Just since 2006, all right, 7 full years after it was released in theaters, 6 million copies have been bought home video. 6 million copies of this movie since 2006.
Yeah.
That's real unusual, guys. That's weird.
It's one of those movies that everybody has to have a copy of. Everybody has a copy of this movie. That's
true.
The deal.
I actually don't own it, and every time I think about buying a new DVD, I'm like, or maybe I should buy Office Space.
Yeah, I need to pick it up. Right. It's probably gonna happen today. I'm just guessing. I don't know. I'm not saying. I'm just saying.
Shake your 8-ball.
Science
sources
points
say yes.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
So let's talk. Before we started, you had something interesting. So what made it a sort of a, to use the word, like a cult hit? Yeah, defining cult hit here as not successful in theaters, fabulously successful after the fact. And there was something that I wanted to say that actually I think dovetails quite nicely with that. But let's start there. So like what do you think that was about? Like, do you have any ideas? I have a couple.
I mean, it's hard to talk about it in terms other than just it's a really good movie, but it is. But I think it's a movie that is, and this is a really important word for you and I, watchable. It is
Right.
inherently watchable.
Yes.
And it is set up. There's okay. I think movies that are really watchable. One of the things they do really well is they understand the story in terms of set pieces, almost like separate sketches.
Yep.
But they are, in this case, put together. I
Yes.
think one of the reasons why, when I was a kid, I watched Monty Python and the Holy Grail so many times.
It was because they're discrete.
Do you remember the scene in front of the castle? And then where they talk about the swallows? And then do you remember the scene where he fights the soldier? And then do you remember the scene where he gets in the argument with a peasant and calls him a peasant?
Yes.
Do you remember the scene? And it's like, the scene on the bridge, that they are discrete scenes that sort of you could theoretically look at them as sketches, but then when you build them out, they stand for themselves. So you have the standalone thing like the destruction of the printer, like every scene of Jennifer Aniston's character at Chachi's.
Right.
Okay.
Every scene with Milton. Every scene with Milton. And so you have these distinct characters. And that's a big part of it. This is a movie with phenomenal character actors who Mike Judge has cast beautifully and then allowed to do their thing. And then what he's done is given each of them a sort of space to exist. Right. And so you have these setups. You have the scene in the room with Peter and the Bobs, or the Bobs. Like you have the scene, and that's a specific thing that you remember. John C. McGinley is so good. They're both good, but I know John C. McGinley from other things, and he is just brilliant as whichever Bob won.
Right. The thing he does, there's this one point where they're trying to talk to him about like spitballing a new job title for him, and he does this thing with his tongue, like this shooting back and forth thing, which is like him. It's not. If you've never seen it and you see me do that, you're like, so it's dirty? It's not dirty. It's like this weird like thing that he does, and both of those guys are just incredibly good actors. But McGinley's the one that everyone knows better. I don't know the other guy's name even, but they are just phenomenal, and that their whole interaction. There's the moment when Lumbergh is talking about Peter Gibbons. I'm going to have to go ahead and disagree with you there. And then McGinley's Bob gets really you see him get physically upset.
Right.
And the other Bob does that little thing with his hand and he goes,
right.
I've got this. I've got this.
It's okay. Right.
And we feel that the problem is not with Peter. Anyways, so it's all that stuff. So I think that's a big part of it is it's got set pieces, and within those set pieces, you also have carefully constructed lines that, and I don't know why this happens. Okay, the go-to one I talk about is Lebowski. Lebowski is not my favorite Coen Brothers movie.
Right.
It's becoming more and more of my favorite, but a big part of this, why has the culture latched onto this movie? Why is this movie more quotable than Raising Arizona?
Right.
Why is this movie more... I mean, I know why it's more quotable than Fargo. Maybe it's just the strength of the idea that they have created characters with memorable lines.
Right.
I would love to talk to someone. It's just lightning in a bottle. But I don't know why. But I know that every single character and every single line, maybe it's because they fit into certain archetypes. Even if you don't know Walter Sobchak, you know a loud, angry guy who's very blustery.
Yes.
Especially if you know me.
Everyone watching this, you know at least one.
I'm a little uncomfortable about this. And same with the dude. A guy who just can't get it together. You know a guy whose response when you you cut someone down and their response would be something akin of, yeah, well, that's just your opinion, man. Yeah, and actually think that's a good that's the necessary response.
I'm done here. I have disposed of your comment.
Your opinion, man.
It is Lebowski and Office Space. I mean, we talk about movies that we say literally every line is quotable. It is hard to think of two movies that come closer to that actually being true.
Yeah.
I mean there is there is at least one extremely memorable line in every scene in the movie.
Right.
And I think that absolutely has to do with sort of its enduring popularity. But I don't know, Phil. I think it's more than that because again, it's not really the same thing as what we usually mean when we say enduring popularity, right? When Titanic was re-released, a lot of people went to see it, but it made $1 billion the first time it was released. This made
Yeah, but it's not a watchable movie, right? I mean, like,
right. But it was a watchable movie when it was released too.
you're right. Yeah.
And I think you and I have spoken obliquely or directly at many points about like the movie going experience, and I believe that there should be a constitutional amendment allowing me to just murder anyone who talks too loudly in a movie theater. I think I would use that responsibly, and I wouldn't go nuts, but I would, the Bobcat Goldthwait's movie God Bless America had that scene right.
Yeah. That might have been my favorite scene in the movie, actually.
It's absolutely my favorite scene in the movie.
No, actually, my favorite scene in that movie is when they shoot the conservative pundit. Not because I think it's funny to shoot conservatives at all, but because there's that moment where the guy's like, and by the way, God Bless America, we are not recommending this movie. We're not recommending it.
I might. I don't know that I do.
No, I'm not saying it's bad either. I'm saying I can't.
It's tough.
You got to make up your own mind on this one. It's the darkest, most vile thing I've seen, and on one level, and on another level, one of the most moral things I have ever seen. And it's a difficult movie to deal with for that reason.
It's true.
But I wouldn't just be like, hey, everyone should go see God Bless America. Right. I'd say look up the synopsis and see if it's something you can stomach, because it's not for everybody. But there's that moment when they're killing this one guy who's basically a Rush Limbaugh takeoff, and he's like, oh great. I'm dying a martyr because you're killing me just because you disagree with me. And the guy stops and he goes, no, I agree with you about a lot of things, actually. I'm not killing you because I disagree with you. And he's like, what? He's like, then what's your problem? He goes, you're not nice.
Yes.
I'm killing you because you're not nice.
I love it.
And then they're walking away, and the girl his whatever, because they shot him, and then they're walking away, and the girl goes, what positions do you agree with him on? And he's like, well, I mean, gun control.
Right. So that's.
But I'm sorry, but why we brought that up because you have a problem with people talking in the movie theater. So go ahead.
The thing is, I think that's true, and yet, I try to recreate the theater experience when I watch a movie at home. Having said that, folks, if you don't know, Phil and I are doing this thing called Horror School, where I set him a task of watching a particular horror movie, and then we discuss it. And there was one movie, Rec, the Spanish zombie movie Recordar, that I said he had to, if he watched it with someone, he was not allowed to talk. If we both feel the way that we do about talking in movies, why did I have to say that to you? And it's because, as much as I want to recreate the theater experience at home, I realize that it is different when you're at home. And if you and I were watching a movie together, of course we would talk to each other. And I think there is something, and I think this touches on the fact that it's so quotable. I think it touches on the fact that it's watchable. I think that, just like every great movie, there is something universal about either the characters in every situation in the movie or the situation that you're looking at in the movie. Yeah. Everyone, just like everyone knows a blowhard like Walter Sobchak, everyone knows that, seriously, I have to come in on Saturday and Sunday feeling. And so...
And they know the bosses, that have the audacity to ask them and make it sound like it's not a terrible thing.
That's right. And so, and when you are sitting in a movie theater, of course that impacts you. But if you are sitting next to a buddy on the couch, and you're watching on TV, and maybe you're watching it on, as you said, on Comedy Central, so there's even a commercial break where you can just talk about the crazy stuff you just watched. I think it resonates even more in that setting. And then once you've seen it, you don't remember, oh my God, I like that movie at least partially because during commercial breaks I was talking about it. You just remember, I loved that movie. And so then maybe the next time you're like, shh, you guys gotta watch this movie, right? I bought it. You know what I mean? So I think there's something to, like, it is, I can't imagine, it is nowhere near my favorite movie of the time period between 1999 and now. Nowhere near. I mean, it's when I say nowhere near, I mean, it's probably in my top 25. but it's not number 3.
Okay. Right.
But
you might watch it before you'd watch a lot of the other top 25.
True, and I can't think of another movie. I would be able to, but in this moment, I can't immediately think of another movie that gains so much from the experience of watching it with somebody else. I loved watching the 2 Lord of the Rings movies with you in the theater that I got to, the first one and the third one. But it's not like that movie wouldn't have transported me.
No, that was more about our friendship than it was about the movie.
Precisely. This
is it was about knowing that there would be at least one person near you that would shut up.
Yes. Remember when I shut that guy up during Return of the King? I was really proud of that. I was just like,
oh my gosh, yeah, I forgot about that.
I remember this very distinctly. I was like, please be quiet. And his girlfriend had just been shushing him, and he was like, yeah, I got it. And I turned around, and you were significantly nicer than I would have been.
I was getting ready, because the thing is, when that finally happens, and I wait till the boiling point.
Right.
Because I really don't want to. You know why? Because I'm a scaredy cat, and I don't want to do it. Right. Because I could get punched, and I don't like pain.
That's right.
But so I don't do the excuse me, sir. So I wait until it's finally you know what, we got a problem. So
right.
I got into an altercation with someone at a Dylan concert because they talked poorly to my wife.
Well, that's completely.
And no, but I mean, but it had built up to the point that my wife went and talked to them, and then the guy was really rude to my wife, and I was like, now we have an issue. Now we have an issue.
You woke the bull. Now you're getting the horns.
Right. So when the security guard, when he called security over on me, it's like, well, that was probably legitimate. But
that's big of you. The most sort of
security. I'm glad you're here. I was probably about to do something terribly stupid.
Right. The one fist fight I've been in my life that lasted one punch. The guy punched me in the eye, and I was like, "Ow, that hurt. I'm stopping." What am I doing?
That happened to me twice. I've never hit someone. I've been hit twice.
This happened at Hebrew school because I'm a total geek.
Nice.
I got into my one fight was one punch long. I was in Hebrew school after my bar mitzvah. Come on, Andy. Just go pick a fight at a biker bar, jerk. Yep. What are you doing with your life? So, I actually got this from the principal or dean or whatever. I forget what his title specifically was. He said, I can either talk to both of your parents or neither of them. And it's one of the top 2 or 3 moments of my life. If I had a time machine, I wish I had said both. Because I said neither. And I was like, right. Both. Let's do this thing.
Right. Let's see what happens.
Right. Security. I'm glad you're here. So. Right. This is as sort of highfalutin as I'm going to get about Office Space and about its popularity, because at its core, none of this would be true. Everything we're saying wouldn't be true if it weren't what you said, Phil. If it weren't watchable, if it weren't just an enjoyable movie to watch. People forget just real quick. People forget that film is. It's a medium. If people don't enjoy your movie, whatever other point you want to get across isn't getting across.
I just remembered one of the reasons why this movie is so special.
Please.
And why it's so lasting.
Please.
I told the story about getting in an altercation with someone at the Dylan concert. And then all of a sudden, as soon as you started talking, I started to think about all the things I would have liked to have said to that guy that I didn't say. And I got this feeling inside of me of courage and fear and anger and joy. Right. And it was cathartic even to think about it.
Right.
And this is 2 years later, and this movie taps into its wish fulfillment.
Yes.
This movie taps into it builds up the frustration we all know or can tap into from our work experiences that were less than good, shall I say?
Not optimal.
If you want to do the bare minimum, then that's your choice. But some people choose to go beyond the bare minimum. You know, that thing, and then it actually shows someone
it gives
doing
it to you.
It gives it to you, and it does it in such a fulfilling way. And there's even a cathartic fire at the end. You know what I mean?
Right. That's right.
But it does this thing, and what it does in some degree,
I'm going to burn this place to the ground, and then it literally happens.
Right. We talked to some degree about this. There was an episode we did about a month ago on a subject we decided to call magical realism, which is where everything in the movie, all of the premises are completely realistic, except one thing is sort of tweaked.
Yes.
Okay, and the example we gave was Ruby Sparks, where this is a completely realistic world, except this guy's girlfriend he's a writer and he wrote this person and she came to life. But everything that, even his reaction to it is like, this isn't right.
Right.
And so this movie to some degree is like magical realism because it has that hypnosis reality that creates this thing. And then even the fire that happens at the end, it's this sort of like, there's a sort of wish fulfillment. And so what this movie does is it gives us all an opportunity to live into or to dream about the ways we would say this to this person, or like how great it would be to not actually fear.
Yeah.
Like
that's really well said, and I think that dovetails perfectly into what I want to say. The whole idea of wish fulfillment, and again, I will not get snootier than this, hardly ever, but certainly not about the movie Office Space. We are, you may have heard, we appear to be coming out of it, but in a financial hiccup, right? Like, and so the number of people, in any given moment throughout human history, most people are doing something they don't want to be doing. Like, that's just a fact.
That's a very good point.
But whether or not it's more, the percentage of people doing that is higher now, it feels like it's higher. It feels like people are either out of work and they don't want to be because they want to feed their families, or they are doing something that they hate just so they can feed their family.
Yep.
Right? And again, it builds into that sort of communal aspect. Like, you're not going to a bar and drinking alone about it. You're going to a bar and drinking with your buddies about it because they're in the same boat. And this idea that there has to be a better way, but we can't find it, is that feeling of being trapped in a job, right? It's sort of on a macro level with the entire economy. But I think honestly, the economy wasn't terrible in 2006, but there were other things going on. There are always other things going on. I don't want to push that too far. But like, I would say a good portion of those 6 million copies bought since 2006 were bought since 2008.
Yeah.
And I think that has a lot to do with it. I can't think of a better movie because it is purely and in the truest sense of the word cathartic. And it is because it's cathartic on this point, and it's because of what you were saying. It's because of the wish fulfillment.
And there's two other things that I want to point out about this movie that are really, really special.
Yeah.
One is white people's obsession with black music. The movie is almost entirely scored by hip hop and rap, and specifically gangster type music. Ghetto Boys and the song "Damn It Feels Good to Be a Gangster," and like it's used again. Real comedy fundamentally understands irony.
Yes.
Which is difficult because most human beings don't understand irony. It's not just rain on your wedding day. But what it does,
it's
understands.
Never rain on your wedding day.
Well, it could be. You don't expect it. It's the opposite of what you expect.
Philip.
I'm just saying.
No. Philip?
She's not completely inaccurate.
She's mostly inaccurate.
But not completely. I'm just saying, give Alanis just a little. It's been 15 years. Let's give her a little bit of break.
No, it's not that you don't expect it. It's that it's not something you want.
But that's not what irony is.
I know, but that's what rain on your wedding day is.
I'm just saying.
No,
she's mostly wrong.
Phil, I love you.
Look, it's the difference between. It's the difference between mostly dead and all dead.
I don't think it is. I think she's just. Go ahead, make your point.
Anyways,
now I'm angry.
My point is that I was the one who brought it up as a joke in the first place, so I get to tell the story. Anyways, irony is most people do not understand how it works, including me half the time, and including Alanis Morissette 9/10 of the time.
Right.
But that being said, this movie understands irony fundamentally. So you have the white guy who's just listening to the gangster music and like singing along really loud, and then he sees like a black guy walking by and he turns it down really quietly and locks his door, and then
like out the window,
comes back up,
Totally.
like there's that whole thing, but then they actually use it. They do that to show how silly it is, but then they use that same music in two separate sequences to show, like, for us to get into it, that are both slow-mo. One is when they first like do the crime, like when they're like, and then the other one is when they're beating up the when they're beating up the copy machine. Actually, three times, and then the third time is just the Dan feels going to be a gangster to show like Peter Gibbons. So you're comparing him to a gangster like lifestyle. So on one hand, they show you how silly it is when like nerdy white people are like, oh, hip hop is great, and then they use hip hop for us to enjoy the movie, and like it's a perfect entry into that. Like it's an acknowledgement. But this goes further, which is that this is a thing that Mike Judge does, which is that he's really, really smart about simple comedy. And what I think the final thing I want to say about this movie before I'm all done anyway, it sounds really simple, but really look at this movie. It's a very well written movie.
Yeah.
That every line is cared for and thoughtful. And this is the other thing, it's creatively written. And what I mean by that is like the ways that people make fun of people are funny. Like the way are specific and original, and like lines. It's a movie. It's utterly Shakespearean in that Mike Judge creates words for the sake of humor. Yeah. And he's a wordsmith, and I think that matters. Like I think that matters tremendously. So I'm a huge fan. I'm a huge fan of Office Space. I'm a huge fan of Mike Judge. Another one of his movies that did not become a cult hit, but has a small level of cult status, is Idiocracy. But really, and then Extract was his last one. Basically, all he does is make movies that people rent later on and go, oh, this was much better than people gave it credit for. Yeah. And it's just what he does for a living.
I haven't seen Extract yet. I very much want to.
Yeah.
I very much liked Idiocracy.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, you don't want to that much. You'd have done it by now. You watch 15 movies a week.
I'm sorry, Phil. Do I have a Netflix queue that isn't Mel Gibson right now? Do I have a Netflix queue that isn't?
I don't know. You watch. I just said what I said. I've spoken my piece and counted to 3.
It's also not at my library. So
that's a problem.
I know.
Andy rents movies at the library, by the way, people.
When you watch 15 movies a week, you will quickly go even broker than I am now.
Interesting. Extract is streaming on Netflix.
Oh, fantastic. It's in my queue.
Just saying it's streaming on Netflix.
Okay. All right, Phil.
Are we done here?
I think we're done. You know what, Phil? You've got upper management potential written all over you.
Thank you for that. I take that as a compliment.
You should.
Thank you.
I'm
going to have to go ahead and disagree with you there.
Yeah.
Oh, Lumbergh. So many things to say.
He's just like Gary Cole, man. Because people aren't always talking about him in that movie, he does not get the credit he deserves.
It's fair.
For crafting the perfect villain for that movie. Just love it.
Yeah.
You know what, guys? I could ramble about.
And we haven't even talked about Samir. We haven't even talked about Samir and Michael. Everything they do is brilliant. It's unfortunate. Samir should be more famous. I mean, it's a great line. I mean, there's that moment where everything he says is hilarious. Samir is just dripping with anger. And there's that moment when the guy walks over and goes, "It's a jump to conclusions board."
Terrible idea.
And this is a terrible, terrible idea.
Yes.
I had this really good idea, and then he waits, and Peter goes, "Really? What is it, Tom?"
Yeah, I mean, you know what? This is part of the screenwriting too. You know, it's a well-written movie when the pauses are funny too.
Oh, yeah.
You know.
Yep.
We could clearly talk about this movie forever, but we will spare you that indignity. Just go watch it again. Seriously. I'm not going to even entertain the thought that you haven't seen this movie, because while Phil is probably right that none of you have seen it and saw it in the theaters, I'm guessing none of you have yet to see it for the first time. Right. With the possible exception of some of you youngsters out there, which get your lives together. And that'll do it for today on Second Breakfast.
That's it.
This was a lot of fun. We hope you enjoyed it too. If you have questions for the mailbag or just want to talk to us, email us at secondbreakfastpodcast@gmail.com. I'm Andy Roth, and that's Phil Duvall. We'll see you again real soon. Bye.
Adios.
The most important meal of the day, second